You're listening to WLPN LP Chicago, 105.5 FM, Lumpen Radio, Bridgeport, Chicago. It's October 19th, 2017, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, Chris Quinn, and I am coming to you, as always, from Studio B here at the Co-Prosperity Sphere in Bridgeport, Chicago, Lumpen Radio. And thank you to Lumpen Radio for hosting us yet again. And thank you to the fearless leader of Lumpen Radio, Mr. Logan Bay, and thanks to producer Serge for nailing the opening yet again. So well done to Serge. Thanks everyone out there listening over the airwaves on 105.5 FM here in Chicago, or if you are listening anywhere via the live stream on the Lumpen Radio app or TuneIn Radio or anywhere else where you can get the live stream of Lumpen Radio. If you are doing so, you should hop into the chat room, which is tlk.io/WLPN. I think it's actually embedded into our new website as well, but don't expect me to know that yet. It's only been up for like a week or something, so maybe in the next 6 months I'll figure out what that link is. But for now, just go to Lumpen Radio or fool around on Craft Beer Temple, and you can figure it out. But anyway, there's a live chat. They mainly troll me, so I don't really go on there anymore and poke the bear, so to speak. They enjoy that too much. So, I just got to we have an arm's distance relationship, the chat room and I. Usually it'll kind of trickle down when I've enraged them enough that people will say, hey, man, you really got the chat room upset. But anyway, thank you, chat room. You guys are okay, I guess. I also want to thank people who are not listening live, but who are listening on via podcast. We are a podcast. Some would say the number one podcast in the United States, at least. I would go far as to say the known universe. But there might be a great one in the unknown universe, so I'm not gonna declare that we are the best. But so far, the reviews are in, and we're the greatest of all time. So, thank you. I have to give a little bit of, a hard time considering who my guests are. But anyway, yes. What are you listening to? This is your first time you hear me rambling on, and you're thinking, what the hell is this? So let me just tell you, the goal of the show is to open up a window into how the people making, selling, marketing, and facilitating the beer getting into your glass feel about the topics that are part of their everyday lives. Many of my greatest beer experiences have been talking about beer while sharing beer with people whose opinions I respect and admire, and it's these experiences I hope to capture with this show, the Insiders Roundtable. Kind of, think of it as a bunch of guys sitting around, shooting the whatever and just talking about beer. So, it's about as reliable as that sort of conversation, but it can also be that insightful as well. So before I get to my guests, I like to always mention that everyone's opinions are their own, and they're not affiliated with anybody else's, and specifically not Lumpen Radio. So don't go after Lumpen Radio when I say something that is, technically accurate, but somehow the facts say otherwise. Don't go after Lumpen Radio, is what I'm saying. And don't go after the Beer Temple either, now that I mention it. But who are my guests? We're going to go in order of seniority. It's an easy one this week. We've got Mr. Matt Arata, who is just fully engaged, fully attentive, not at all looking to the side, waving as he looks down at his laptop to see the Cubs, who it seems doesn't even want to mention, want to mention that they're about to be knocked out.
I'm not even going to look anymore. That was the last look.
That was the last look. How they doing? Not well. Okay.
Not well.
Oh.
The words grand and slam come to mind.
Oh.
It's over.
All right.
So
7-zip then, I assume?
Yes.
Grand slam.
Good job.
You never know. You never know. If you're listening to this as a podcast later,
maybe they'll say, hey, I remember that. That was the greatest comeback of all time. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Josh Noel will maybe he'll actually show up now because he's planned to come on later, and I thought that if it was a tight game, he might not. So now maybe he'll show up. But what's new with you other than the crushing defeat potential?
Something with beer,
team.
Maybe. What's new with beer, maybe, or something at all related to beer.
Speaking of which, I need a beer. Can someone pour me a beer, please?
Well, over on Beer Download on the Saturday 4 p.m. show on this station, we have started the Craft versus Crafty tournament.
Ooh.
With the idea that each week we're still going to do 2 beers head-to-head, but one of them is going to be a true craft as BA defines craft beer, and the other one is going to be a not BA-defined craft beer. And
just to see?
Just to see. Well, yeah, just to see. And we're trying to do it blind if we can, which might be difficult if there's only 2 of us on the show. Though we've had some guests recently, right. And the guests have worked out so that one of us can know what the beers are, and the other 2 can be blinded. And so it's for example, last show we did 2 shows ago we did Goose Island IPA versus Bell's Two Hearted, but we didn't know which was which going in.
Didn't you? Oh, going in.
I mean, I knew that was my week to know which the beers were, and Steve and the guest, who was Josh Noel.
Fresh. Okay.
Yeah, both within 6 to 8 weeks, something like that.
Okay. It's relatively fresh,
and
I suppose.
Well,
that's as well. You guys are all about what would someone reasonably find on the shelf, which I think is a very fair way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still going to check, and we're still going to check dates and stuff like that.
Just
so
like an informed consumer would.
Well,
no, I think that's fair.
So just go to the store and pick up a couple of 6-packs, or in this case 12-packs, because the pricing was drastically better for a 12-pack. Anyway, Two Hearted blew the other one out of the water. So,
but Goose Island's like a 3-time gold medal GABF winner. I don't know how many Two Hearted's ever won.
Not anymore.
I saw a huge billboard saying so.
Wow.
So it's award winning. But anyway,
so
that beer's changed quite a bit. Yeah, Goose IPA.
That's what we're doing now. The Craft versus Crafty tournament.
Yeah.
And so far we've got.
I bet it's going to be tighter.
So far
it's going to be a tight race. I bet
it's 2-1 Craft.
Okay, what was the one that? What's the one Crafty that?
Well, the one that where Kraft lost out was kind of not exactly a fair fight, but it was back in late September, and Steve brought on an Oktoberfest beer and another fall seasonal / kind of Oktoberfesty beer. And I had opened the show not knowing what he was going to bring on. He didn't even put them out on the table when I opened the show, and I did a little spiel about Oktoberfest, and I asked Steve what were the 6 official Oktoberfest Munich breweries, and he couldn't come up with any of them.
He couldn't come up with any. Steve Mastny could not come up with any of them.
I think he got one.
I remember
hard
which
to
one
believe.
it is.
But
so how many are there?
I believe there are 6.
6. Okay, so
there might be 7. But
as of right now,
like the official ones that are within Munich city limits, that are allowed to pour at Oktoberfest and be called Oktoberfest beers.
Okay, let me think. How many can I do? So there's Paulaner, there's Hofbrau, there's Spaten, There's this is where it gets more difficult. Schneider and Son used to be there, but it burnt out, so they're not there anymore. But is there? It's not Augustiner, is it? Augustiner's 4. Let me think. Hold on. Is there? It's not Lowenbrow, is there?
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say.
Lowenbrow's
Yeah.
5. So 1 to 2 more.
Yeah.
Is one of them a wheat beer?
I don't know. What is Hackershore? count as?
Hackershore, son of a gun. Hackershore. I should have gotten Hackershore. I would have gotten Hackershore, but yeah, I would have. But anyway, okay, cool. I'm
Yeah, that was it.
German Fest extra.
shame on
Anyway, so
Steve Maskey.
he brought on and it turned, and I was talking about that I picked up at the store a 4-pack of the old style Oktoberfests. It was there. I hadn't tried it before. I wanted to try it, and just coincidental, he brought that on in the blind.
Mm-hmm.
But he put it up against 5 Rabbits, Vita e Murzen,
Muerte, yeah.
something like that. So Murzen, like
Yeah.
death, but also kind of like Märzen.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But that beer has a lot of spice characteristic to it. So it's good beer.
It's an
but
oddball
I
beer.
decided that the theme of the day was Oktoberfest theme, and it did not fit in the theme. And I didn't really like the old style Oktoberfest previously. I thought it was a little flat, a little uninspired, like they just took old style yeast and malt and whatnot and just like, changed it just a little bit, and now we have an Oktoberfest beer. But on the day of the round on the show, I was like, this is more of
You
an
don't have to make
Oktoberfest.
excuses.
I'm
you
just
love
saying.
Oktoberfest
So,
and old style. That's it.
The crafty beer there sort of got through.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. My next guest is coming in remotely. We yet to be in person. Someday soon, maybe. Is Mr. Brian Roth, writer extraordinaire. How are you, man? What's
I'm doing
new?
Great. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on your North American Guild of Beer Writers Award.
That's right.
First
I owe
place
you
in
a
the
check.
in the beer podcast category.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, no, that was exciting.
Excited to see that at the awards. I was in Denver, and as director of the guild, we had a couple events. One of them being that award ceremony and meeting, and it was exciting to see you guys take top prize.
Cool. Well, yeah, that was exciting for us as well. It's funny. I don't know how. How do you promote something like this? There was Keith Lemke, who's been on the show and is at SIBO. Oh, and is a favorite guest of yours, Brian. Reached out to me the other day and says, "You haven't made a big enough deal about this. I just heard about it. Shame on you." And what are you supposed to do? Say like, "Hey, everyone, look at me. I just want So it was cool. We're happy, and it's cool to be recognized. And I think we'll leave it there. So, but thank you guys.
But you deserve
I
the
suppose.
kudos all the same.
Cool. What's new with you, other than being at GABF and giving out awards to me?
Yeah, my time actually in Denver was part of a bigger swing out west to visit family in Seattle. So I was in Seattle for a few days, then went to Yakima for the Fresh Hop Fest there.
Oh, cool.
And then went to Portland for a couple of days before going back to Seattle and then on to Denver.
wow.
So it was about a week and a half of
great
just kind of
trip.
seeing friends and family and drinking good beer.
Are you from out there, friends and family?
I have a brother who lives in Seattle, so I was going out to visit him. He just had a baby, so I was going to see my nephew. And then it just happened to work out perfectly with some timing that he got his first night away from the new family for the night in Yakima. So
just
brother
had a
and I
baby.
hung out there.
Just had a baby. First night away. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. When I was out there, the baby was little Lucas was about a month old. So
Cool.
it was his opportunity just to go have some fun for a night and then head back the next day. But I had a great time. It was my first time in Yakima, first time in Portland, Oregon. And it was a great experience kind of seeing what was going on around there.
So are you, with the feds involved, in not only pay to play here in Illinois, but also in men's college basketball. Are you at all fearful for your leader? You think is Duke in any potential danger of going down like your friends down Tobacco Row kind of went down a couple of years ago? I think kind of a little different there, but UNC. Any fear you guys quaking in your boots yet?
I think Coach K is going to be all right.
I think you're probably right. I think
he's got connections with Team USA. Should anything happen, so
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I always thought that was we won't get into that. Anyway, interesting recruiting tool. I can get you in the Olympics. But thanks for coming on virtually. Not my last guest, because I think we have a late edition coming. I think Josh Noel will be coming, probably drunk on barrel-aged stout shortly. But my next guest is Mr. Mike Palin of Microphone Brewing. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
How are you, dude?
Good. Been kind of on that whirlwind tour, just like Brian over there. We went to Yakima to pick and select hops, rub hops. So that was fun. First experience for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I flew into Portland, was there a few days, met some people, saw some equipment, and then we drove out to Yakima. And that was such a different experience for me because I've never done that before. And so getting to
what? Up into a hop farm?
Yeah, we rubbed different rows, and we went out to the farm and met the producers and the growers.
Can you talk for just a few minutes about what that process is?
Yeah, so I have two different hop contracts. So in order to make sure that we have the hops we need every year, we sign contracts with our different providers. So for me, it's either Brewer Supply Group or Country Malt. And in this case, Country Malt brought me out there. So they took me to their supplier, which is YCH, Yakima, and then we went out there, and they had us all kind of gather in a few different rooms, and they put a bunch of hop samples, freshly picked hop samples. And you've got, Mosaic, you got Simcoe, Citra, Amarillo.
Like wet
Chinook.
Samples straight off the vine, or like
No,
processed?
they've been kind of somewhat processed. They're not pelletized yet, but they're processed and put into a yep. So you go through, and it's different rows, different farms. They don't really give you much information, and you try to just break them apart and be honest and tell them exactly what you get, because every row, every farm is different. You'll have a crop of Mosaic that's onion garlic. You have the next one that's super aromatic and floral. So they want that feedback. They want to know which farms are producing, what's working over there, and they have extensive notes on their back end too. And so when you do get a bag from them eventually, it has a barcode on there. You can scan it in, see when it was picked, what temperature it was killed at, what farm it was from, what row it was from. So if there is some kind of off flavors that are consistently coming out of it, they can figure that out and backtrack it. So after doing that kind of rubbing and sniffing and documenting our notes, we then went out.
Rubbing and sniffing.
We went out to one of the farms out there, and it's incredible. I mean, imagine wine country, and then this is just hop farm country. And so for miles upon miles, it's just farm after farm after farm. And some of these guys have proprietary stuff, such as the Mosaics and the Simcoes and Citras. And just to see the process, I mean, there's these massive dump trucks coming in with vines freshly cut, and then they go up into this conveyor and get cut, and then they just go on a maze of conveyors just to break them apart. And then by the end of it, you see them up in the kiln. They're drying, and then they get dropped in, put into bales, and then sent back over to the people who pelletize them. Or now they're making hop oil, hop ash, all this stuff out of them. So we typically get pellets, but it's a cool process, and you have a deeper appreciation for the hops, for getting quality hops too. I mean, one of the things that was kind of recently talked about was how some of these younger brewers don't always have the best selection of hops. And so you see the big guys out there. I mean, we were picking with, New Glarus was out there, and you've got
Dan Carey, was he there?
Dan wasn't there, no. But you've got guys from all the big breweries are there. People from Miller Coors that I've worked with in the past, they were out there picking at the same farm we were. So, you want to get in there, you want to get ahead of it, and you want to know what your hops you're getting. Because there are some small farms coming up too, and just they don't have those quality standards. So it's important for me to go out there, see this process, and make sure that we're picking the right hops that we want based on our specs. So it was fun.
Yeah, it's amazing how much, how capital intensive that type of farming is. I mean, the specialty equipment, the size of those, these conveyors, these hop picking machines are massive. And
Oh yeah, you're
from what
talking
I've-
football fields. You could put football fields inside these buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And those are the big boys. And I've seen the little ones, and the little ones are still the size of like a dump truck, if not bigger. And those are like the tiny ones. Those are the little ones. So it's very specialized and very expensive equipment. And you have to dry these things essentially immediately after you pick them.
Yeah, they say they basically only work for 30 days out of the year. They're obviously growing them and setting up the plants and fixing all the trellis work and all that stuff throughout the year and fixing their machines. But then when it comes time to harvest, that's all they do for 30 days straight. They're picking, cutting, packaging, drying, shipping out.
All hands on deck.
It
type
is,
thing,
yeah. Yep.
If I can, I have a question about drying.
Yeah.
Does it pass through like on a conveyor belt just one time, or does it go in a batch, or how long does that take?
Yeah, so they have everything's moving constantly. So they bring in, the one crop. So let's say it's citra. They bring that in, cut it, shake it, pick through it, make sure all the stems and sticks are out of there and the leaves. And then once it's finally just a bunch of hop cones, they go up into these. It almost looked like a bunch of big baths, but they've got kind of like a burlap sack in there, and that's sitting in there. And underneath that is the kiln. So the kiln is just constantly, drying those out. And it's a long process, and that room was just steamy. I would not be the one guy that working in that room. It felt like a sauna in there.
When they
Yeah,
keep the air circulation too, so there's
Yep.
like tons of air going across them to get all that moisture out as well.
And so they said there's so many different elements. I mean, if it's raining that day, they still have to pick because they only have those 30 days. So they say that process just slows the kiln process way down because they have to do it so much longer. Every day it's just a different element. And if it's a good day, it takes X amount of hours. If it's a bad day, it takes double or triple that.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
But then they do variant. They make sure that they want to. Some guys have been picking for so long, they know that they want their hops kilned at this temperature for this long, and they have all those specs dialed in. So that's what I mean. Sometimes you
That's
get a
crazy.
Citra beer, and it could be the most dank, crazy hop you ever had. And then the next one, it's just kind of like, there's Citra in this? What's going on? And we noticed that as we were rubbing and sniffing. Like, one of them, Mosaic was a good example of this, too. It was like, Mosaic had onion and garlic, which is, everyone says OG. And onion and garlic is something you don't want, especially if you're trying to make juicy, hoppy beers.
Well,
Unless
I like.
I know you do. I was going to say, if you're trying to make
prefer your
juicy,
hops
hoppy.
with onion and garlic.
I really do.
Old
That's why I
school,
love
yeah.
Summit, and Summit is now essentially a dead hop. It doesn't really exist in production breweries anymore, but it was known for OG.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, yeah. But it can. But Mosaic definitely can have that kind of like green onion chivy thing going on. But
one of the cool things too is that even row to row, the terroir, as it were, might change. But it even depends on the age of what those vines are, as the chemical compounds will shift, from 3 years when it's ready to be picked up to 20 years. And so there's all these little subtle differences that you can find that will change the chemical compounds of the hops, the flavor of the hops, and then ultimately what the flavor of that beer is too. All these very small little things that people really need to pay attention to. So I can imagine, Mike, like you were saying, going through that process of rubbing and smelling can be really helpful, not just to you, but the farmers as well.
Yep.
it's rubbing and sniffing.
Sniffing, sorry.
Yeah. And I also heard that different varietals of hops mature at different rates. So it's always kind of like they have to kind of plan out when stuff's going to be ready. And yeah, it was fascinating. I took a hop farming class where I was way out of my element, Donnie, in Wisconsin actually. And Dan Carey was there, which is why I asked if Dan was there. That dude knew a lot about hop farming. He was very impressive.
And now they got their own farm, so it makes sense.
Right. Well, I mean, that's probably why he was there, because he was looking at how to set up a small production hop farm. So small by hop farm standards, because you go to Yakima, like you said, it's miles and miles and miles, where this was more about setting up, 1 to 5 acres.
Sure.
But you're still a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Of hops. But anyway, cool. Well, that's really neat.
Yeah.
You're always going somewhere and brewing. Who'd you brew with? You always are brewing with somebody.
That trip I didn't brew, but we secured, some future collaborations. I didn't brew that whole time. But no, I just brewed yesterday down in St. Louis with
Losing it.
second shift.
Oh, cool.
And then, so we're going to hopefully go back out to Portland and brew with Great Notion.
Okay.
Those guys are awesome. And then shortly after that, we went out to GBF and broke out and got some time there to go see some breweries and met some cool guys there, and we locked in some more collabs out there. So we'll be traveling these next 4 months are going to be just pure moving and grooving for travel, and we also, because of Fobab, we got a lot of brewers coming in town, so we're going to get those guys on the schedule and brew with them too. So
Cool.
it'll be fun.
Cool. Well, like I said, my final guest is, he promised he was going to come. We'll see if he actually does. We'll get to that later. I'll talk about we got to try all the Bourbon County variants and their amazing warehouse. The Barrel Warehouse, when I first went there, was this big open, essential warehouse, and now it's very, very nice now. I'll say that. I'll say that much. But let's. Why don't we go to a quick station ID break for a minute, 90 seconds or so, Serge? Get a good one. I want some good shows lined up on this one, and we'll be back with more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, Chris Quinn. I am joined by Brian Roth, Matt Arata, and Mike Palin. And during the break, we were just talking. We might hold off on the what beers have you been drinking lately and stuff like that. Somebody can blurt it out if they just absolutely must. But during the break, I was asking Mike how he was doing because I had heard from a mutual friend that he had seen some post about you having a hard time over a beer release. And I don't follow, I see what beers come in, but I'm not following literally every. You do a lot of releases at your space, and I heard that you had a rough one, so I was just asking Mike how it went, and we were talking a little bit about it, and Matt Arata asked if we could talk about this on air, and Mike said, sure. So, was there anything specifically you wanted to ask?
Oh, well, I mean, you were just, so the just say what you said, You had a release and you were doing 4 bottles per person, and then you did a similar beer and you dropped it down to 3 bottles. You're like, that should be good.
Yeah, so we have this beer. Imperial smells like bean spirit. It's the coffee maple stout, and we've been releasing it. I think we've released it now 3 times since we've been open, and we decided let's have a little fun with the beer and do a variant of it and put vanilla in it. So we did that. We decided to release it on a Saturday. I had committed to going up to a beer event that day, but we had our staff completely prepared. We had multiple iPads. We had the lines all separated. We had clear information online, and like we've done for every other release and every other weekend, it had worked, and it was great. I show up at 7 o'clock that morning, and there's already 100 people deep. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's a new beer. It's a variant.
For what time was the
first guys were there at
time?
5:30 a.m. The sale time is 11 a.m. So guys were there since 5:30, waiting for the doors to open at 11. By the time I got to Rockford, which was probably around 9:30, my tasting room manager called me and said, hey, the line's ballooned over 1,000 people. And one guy actually went out and physically counted everybody, and he said there was 1,274 people in line at one time. That was nothing like we could have ever imagined. If you have that many people show up to anything, you're going to have some issues. And we definitely did have some issues. So, my staff...
What kind of issues?
My staff kicked ass, but when you have that many people waiting, and, we had initially said 3 bottles per person based on what we saw through the line. We said, hey, most of the guys who came super, super early, we took care of them. They got their 3 bottles. We're like, let's try to accommodate more people. And so we reduced the limit from 3 to 2.
That's always going to freak people out.
Freak the people out hardcore. And
that happened to me one year at Dark Lord Day. Let's say it was like 4 bottles. It went down to 3 right before I was about to get my bottles, and then later in the day it went back up to 4. So I like a little I got screwed.
It's tough. You think you're doing the right thing, and
you are. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. And so we learned, don't ever change that.
No matter what you do, it's not going to be the right thing.
Yeah, and then we realized that we didn't have
Don't
enough.
say that wasn't the right thing, because the exact same anger happened to Penrose during one of their first Wild releases, and people were saying, you saw the line, why didn't you reduce the limits? You saw that not
Or why
enough
didn't you reduce them earlier?
And,
right,
but I didn't reduce them earlier because I said, hey, these guys got in line at 5:30 a.m. I'm not going to just all of a sudden go, oh, sorry, guys, we're going to change it on you. You know,
Right.
that was my perspective on that.
Right. And that's what Penrose said at the time, too, is we said what the limit was going to be. And that's what we said. And maybe we should have counted and adjusted, and we made some errors in who we told was probably going to run out, and who knows if everyone's going to take the full limit and stuff like that. And they got skewered for not reducing the limit.
Yeah.
So the point being,
either way.
you didn't
Yeah.
make a mistake. You were in a situation where you were going to get yelled at no matter what.
Sure. So, I mean, and on top of that, with that many people there, we just couldn't accommodate and get them through fast enough. So it took some time to get 2 people and bring people up. So we realized, okay, if we're going to release a beer similar to this, and based on that, we need to learn and change some things about our process. So it took me some phone calls with the mayor of Elk Grove and the parking officials of Elk Grove to get approval for
The
more
town where you
parking.
guys are located,
Get more parking dedicated to us for these release days, and then also have the ability to sell beer out of our back door, which we, by our ordinance, we can only sell beer out of our tasting room. There were some people who were like, you should really set up a table outside. It was a beautiful day. That's illegal. Or, we didn't have the jurisdiction to go and sell out of the back door at the time. The mayor said, hey, if it makes sense for you and it helps you do what you got to do, I'm on board. Just make sure that you're there checking IDs and that this is a streamlined system and we have nobody just kind of lingering around. So I did that. We tried this whole new system last week. We had purchased 2 more POS systems. We had 5 total POS systems.
Whoa.
We had, which is,
That's a ton.
yes, I know.
That's like a Benny's or
That's
something.
a whole nother conversation. But people were like, you should have 20 square readers.
Oh,
you should
shut.
So
Sorry.
yeah, so five was sufficient. We had
5 is huge.
Yeah. So we had, I was checking IDs for everybody in the line. We had a streamlined process. Hey, that cash register's open. So we had 3 tables in the back, 3 people dedicated to just typing in your order, 3 people behind them fulfilling orders,
20
and then a
square readers.
floater person just filling the tables, making sure the bottles were floating. And then we had 3 people up in the front working the tasting room too. And, it rained, it poured that day, but we did have a window in the beginning from 10 a.m. until 11:25 a.m. where it wasn't raining. So we went through 175
Roughly
people.
11:25.
Yeah, we had 175 people through in 35 minutes, which is flying.
How many people in 35?
175 people in 35 minutes. So, we definitely figured it out, and we've learned. We listened to feedback. It was a rough month and a half after that release. It was just negative comments and just the nastiest stuff said about me, our business, our staff.
Yeah,
and
you know what? I'm sorry. I mean,
it's just
I've
the way the
heard-
world works these days.
I've heard the same thing being said from different people, so
yeah.
it's rough that people get like that, and I certainly don't want to be on the receiving end of it, and it sucks when other people are too. But I think people out there, I know some of you guys out there are listening to this show. Come on, man, get a grip. Just realize it's about a beer that, even if it tastes really good, let's say it's a top 5 beer you've ever had, which, I mean, that's asking a lot because you guys drink a lot of beers. It's still just a beer.
So-
I mean, come on,
Mike,
relax.
Go ahead,
I'm
Brian.
really curious. You guys you've been open for how long? A year-ish?
We've had the tasting room open now a little over 7 months, but we've been producing and selling beer in the public for about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for something like this, I think the situation that you found yourself in certainly isn't unusual for a lot of smaller and newer breweries now. So all these changes that you kind of had to make on the fly for this particular event, how has that changed the way that you're thinking about or think that you have to do things moving forward, or even interest in having these kinds of events?
Yeah, interest in having.
Yeah,
it. Good
it's
point.
it was nerve-wracking, and we're like, well, what do we do, because we can't just hire in staff for the day. We can't just lay down and
It's not like you're a
buy
hop
10
farm
more.
who
Yeah.
can have like migrant workers.
Yeah,
come in,
no.
you know?
So we had to think about those things, and thankfully, like that day, my wife was able to come help out, and I had a few guys who don't typically work that day came in and worked with us. So we staffed up. We typically have 4 people working the tasting room on a Saturday. We had 10 people working that day. That's a lot of people, and that's typically not working. I watch everybody's releases, and I do follow what's going on. And I saw WeldWorks just did a lottery, or not a lottery. I'm sorry, they did an Eventbrite, and their beer sold out in I think 5 seconds or something stupid.
Who's?
WeldWorks out in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and people were like, the system's rigged and blah, 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 blah. And there's really no easy way or correct way to do this, whether you go to lottery system or you go to online ticket sales or you do lines or you do whatever you do. We try to do what's best for our business and what's best for our consumers. We want to make sure that everyone has a fair shake at the beer and has just an overall great experience. We have now decided that, we're not going to do these releases as often as we did in the past. We're just going to kind of try to do them every quarter and really be able to, staff up and have the system streamlined and take care of it and watch what works, what doesn't work, and just try to prepare. And, we've got porta potties on site. We've got garbage cans all over the place. We've got people walking through the line and making sure people are comfortable and just trying to take care of it and make sure people are comfortable and understand, hey, here's what's going on today, and we'll try to get through as fast as we can. And
I heard
make
you
this
had some
happen.
thefts and stuff like that. Has that been a problem for you guys?
We had to lock everything up now. Yeah, we had a cooler in the tasting room, and that was kind of a bad idea just to have a three-door cooler like you have. You have multiple.
Yeah.
People had found a way to kind of hide behind the order line, grab bottles, bring them back to their table, and stick them in the bag. We were too busy. We had so many people working. And,
Right.
And our cameras were not up at the time. And
then you had, I heard,
So we locked that up
getting double allocations too.
And that's not, on us, we could do things. We could hand out tickets and say, hey, here's your ticket, hand us a
I'm
ticket.
not looking for blame.
No. I'm just saying, people found a way to thwart the system and not be adult and go in the tasting room line and get bottles and then walk back in the other line and get bottles. And, I would love to say that we could stop that, but people should own up and be adults and not do that stuff. And
People will find ways to game the system if
Yeah.
there's any way to do it. What's up, Ed? How you doing, dude?
I heard Josh Knoll's not going to be here for a little bit, so
Oh, yes, you did.
I
hear
just
it.
decided to
Correct.
walk
Open chair,
downstairs
come on down.
and just and I heard Brian's here, and you look beautiful tonight, Brian.
Oh,
Thank
I
you very
forgot
much.
your the relationship.
But
that you
I
have.
think the solution for this issue, Mike, is pretty simple.
I got it.
No, the solution is not to make not very good beer. The solution is to require that everyone who comes in line brings a folding chair and puts the folding chair in line,
Yes.
and then you just
And
put,
walk away.
And leaves the folding
and
chair
leaves
there.
the folding chair
Oh.
there, and then you place the beer on the folding chair.
we had some leftover folding chairs.
Right, Brian? Isn't that a good idea? Isn't that what they're doing out in the East Coast?
They do in Philly.
That is the tried and true method for sure.
Yeah.
Ghost chairs.
That's the Philly
And you
way.
have
Yeah.
you probably should select a folding chair from Design Within Reach. They're really nice chairs.
Which
They're
I
on
think is
sale
such
now.
a misnomer.
They're on
Design
sale.
within reach because everything there costs like $1,000 or more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now it's on sale because it's the summer season's over. So it's perfect time to get folding chairs.
On it. Yeah.
yeah.
So I had a different question, not about like how good or bad the releases have gone or whatnot, but more of a question about your tap room's been open 7 months. You've seen a huge demand, maybe more than you thought would ever show up, and 1,300 people in line for a beer that no one's ever had before. What are your thoughts around that?
Sorry.
Maybe like why? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Design
Sale.
within reach because everything there costs like $1,000 or more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now it's on sale because it's the summer season's over. So it's perfect time to get folding chairs.
On it. Yeah.
yeah.
So I had a different question, not about like how good or bad the releases have gone or whatnot, but more of a question about your tap room's been open 7 months. You've seen a huge demand, maybe more than you thought would ever show up, and 1,300 people in line for a beer that no one's ever had before. What are your thoughts around that?
Sorry.
Maybe like why? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. Honestly, my wife and I sit back down at night and go through our numbers, and
I'm sure you're very thankful for it.
We
Yeah,
pinch
it's a
ourselves
great
and go,
thing.
"Oh my God, this is nothing like we'd ever planned before." When we got the space to simply just produce beer and sell beer, and then we add a little tasting room component, and next thing you know, it's just been it's fulfilled our wildest dreams. you don't know what the methodology is. We stuck to what we wanted to do with making the beers we do. You know, they're highly flavorful. They're highly adjunct. They're kind of the trendy beers. And I don't know. I really we did not see that many people coming. There's no way. We never would have ever anticipated that many people showing up. And even for our opening weekend, we had probably close to 1,000, but it wasn't this 1,300. And it was just that it blew our mind. It honestly blew our mind. And I mean, all the neighbors around were like, since day one, like, how are you going to get people back here in the industrial park? I mean, for those who don't know, we're in Elk Grove Village. It's outside of Chicago. It's the largest industrial park in the United States. It's not sexy. It's just a bunch of buildings with big garage doors and semi-trucks all around. And everyone's like, how are you going to get people back here? And
oh, yeah.
we haven't done any advertising.
If you're into Three Floyds, you know.
Google Maps.
We'll go.
Yeah, it's it. So
That's
yeah,
great.
we have been incredibly lucky. We're
Beer speaks to people.
yeah, we're super honored to have the consumers come and spend their hard-earned dollars at our place week in and
Yeah.
week out. And you know, I know they don't always have the intentions of getting upset with us or getting upset with the process in general, or not getting what they wanted. But there are
They
some
just
there
want
are
your
some
beer and they're upset they don't get your beer.
there are some people out there who do have bad intentions, and they have a different reason for getting and wanting the beer. And that's where I think part of the issue does stem from. But you know, we can't control that. We're just
You
here
get
to make
1,000
beer.
people, you're gonna have some jerks.
Yeah, we're just here to make beer, and hopefully people enjoy the beer and have a good experience while they bought
Yeah.
it. So
I mean, we have 6 people here, and there's at least one jerk. But
Yeah, I mean,
we'll have to
20
figure out who it is.
12.5% of this room is a jerk. I mean, look at me.
Yeah, exactly. But it is crazy.
I'd like to figure that out. What
Who
what,
the Jagoff is?
No, I'd like to figure out what makes Mike's brewery pop like that. What makes the
Right.
one
It speaks
5
to
miles
people.
away just open and be regular? Or, I mean,
I
I don't know. What about or Brian? Brian may have some
I don't know.
data
I don't know that we can
on
figure that out
this.
today.
Come
right
on.
now, I'm just
come on, Mr. Data. Tell us.
That's something that
Answer
I would
the question
like to think about
definitively.
more.
Did you just look at the ABI approved beer review website to come up with some quick facts
That's right.
on Mike's beer?
Is the question, what does it take to kind of drive this interest?
What's the recipe?
I don't know that you can design it that way. I just think that there's got to be.
I think you can
So-
kind of design it in that way.
Ooh.
There are aspects, and this is something that, thanks, Chris. This is a great intro. I have written about this. I think there are sociological and psychological things that you can play on in regard to aspects of consumerism and the way that people view value that can, in fact, it doesn't translate. It's not a direct correlation in terms of kind of building up the hype for, say, a business or a brewery, but it can do that for brands. And then in turn, we're talking about what it does for a business. Going back, this isn't just beer, but any kind of consumer product. It's not always solely about what the product is, but what the product means. And so on kind of the psychological consumer level, what we're talking about there is, why do people wait in lines for shoes or a particular slice of pizza in New York? It's not just the experience that you get out of it or the feeling of validation or value that you might get from the product, but also ultimately what that means for you. And so while this isn't indicative of, every person who decides to wait in line 6 hours before sales start to pick up a beer, just from a pure, I would say, percentage standpoint, mathematical standpoint, there have to be a number of people who see it as a value within standing of their community or how it makes them feel in terms of, buying those 3 bottles and what that does for them, whether it's something that they're going to take home and enjoy with friends or put on a trading board and see what kind of value it can get. And, there is certainly feedback there. And so I think there are things in terms of particular styles of beer, the way that they're talked about, released, marketed, that can help in this process.
And it's funny, there's so many types of value because, one, you can literally go onto a website and look up what the aftermarket or a group of people, let's call it, have decided is the definitive value of this beer, whether or not that has anything to do with what that brewery is selling that beer for. They've decided that that's the value for it. So that's a very easy way for someone to say, I want the beers of the most value. I'm going to go here, sort high to low, and these are the beers I want.
Yeah. The beer coin effect.
And then, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think there's a beer website, the Beer Exchange, which is built as a trading platform. They actually give you a dollar value for what a particular beer in your cellar is worth. So you could say, I've got, whatever year of KBS, for example, and right now their
Sitting right next to
determination
my
is
boiler.
it's worth X number of dollars.
Your cellar.
Sitting next to the boiler, and but I mean, it's whatever. I mean, yeah, no, I hear you, but it's still like kind of silly there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
another factor in like the success of a brand or business is, in a sense, the idea of when one person likes it and another person likes it, there's this kind of like domino effect of people wanting to go into a line, right? There's like, it's exciting to go into a line. It's exciting
be part
to
of something.
Yeah, be part of something. And, that's actually what makes the craft beer industry, especially for smaller independent brewers, somewhat exciting as well, because they're created to have these small communities emerge and have these kind of shared experiences. And you have to say, though, Mike is lucky here. How many breweries are in Chicagoland? 90?
80 million.
Whatever?
Yeah.
89? You don't hear many stories
I
like
said
this
89,
happening
yeah.
at all the other breweries in town.
No. I mean, it's fortunate. It's great. And
Yeah,
I'm glad.
So Mike's
for
got
it.
the juju.
They're good. They're good problems. They're
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah, they're good
but
problems.
They're good
Yeah,
problems.
for sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, I do see breweries having this. I mean, look at Corridor today. Corridor released their first cans and lined down the block. That's the first time they ever had that.
Cool.
Noon Whistle has it, and just more is going to have it this Saturday for their next Henna release. So it is happening. It's not just us.
No, it's not just
I
you,
think there
but it's
are
not everyone.
There is a strong beer community here in Chicago. We're lucky to have.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that live here. But we also have a lot of people who are very interested in craft beer, which is exciting for all of us.
And it's interesting. You can be interested in it in different ways. It's funny we would be talking about this, and literally just something that kind of came up via a conversation we had during the promo break. But just within the past couple days, I had a pretty profound kind of effect that beer had on me and my relationship with the brewery. And for the first time in years, I kind of just randomly reached out and kind of emailed a brewer. As a result, I emailed Sean Hill literally today, saying, I just want to let you know I was I was at a bottle share, and Fitz brought one of your bottles, and it was one of the ones named after it might have been civil disobedience, or it wasn't civil disobedience, but it was one of the ones named after a philosophical essay or book or something like that. And I was looking at something to read, and I was like, I haven't read Thoreau, and I'd never read Civil Disobedience, so I read Civil Disobedience, enjoyed it. Now I'm gonna be reading Walden. I've downloaded it, and I'm gonna read. I haven't read that for a long. I don't even remember when. And then it kind of goes back to Sean Hill naming his beers that way. Kind of just planted the bug in my mind. And then I remembered that Sean was a philosophy major at Harvard College, which is next door to where I went to elementary school. My 5th grade teacher was a philosophy major there. It was the best teacher I'd ever had, still the most impactful teacher I'd ever had, and who I wrote my college admission essay about. Looked that guy up, emailed him for the first time. I didn't contact him since I was 11, and all this stuff because of a beer. And I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. So I just wanted to reach out and be like, hey, I'm sure not the only person who's picked up a book by Thoreau or Nietzsche or someone else because of your beer. So, it's cool that you're having a positive impact on people. And that's just the way that brewery can have an impact on people. But, maybe people are picking up albums or something and finding a new album or a band that they really like, or finding new styles and opening up new gateways. So it is really neat that there are ways that are not monetary that people are being impacted by what you guys are creating too. So, I it's very easy to get cynical and say that you can just go into the beer exchange about it, but and it's nice that I can kind of reset myself sometimes when it happens to me. And because, literally I sent that email out today being like, hey, I just want to let you know randomly that you had a really cool, profound impact on me recently because of your beers, and thank you. And that's all. Sorry to, have this self-important email to you, but there you go.
I had a customer actually reach out to me today and say, hey, I've got this signed Rancid poster at home, and it's actually from the Milwaukee show, and I know you're from Milwaukee. If I bring it in, would you get it framed and hang it up in your place? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be honored.
That's awesome.
That's great. So yeah, it goes both ways for sure.
Cool.
I think the context is something that gets lost amongst the small group of which I think we all are definitely included, where this is how the very vast majority of beer drinkers consider their experience with the product, right? It's that, they think about it in terms of the memories that they have, not necessarily the beer that they had. It's about, their friends or an event or sharing something with their dad or a brother or a sister or a mom. And these are the kinds of things, like you say in your intro every week, Chris. These are the things that and how they exist for almost all of the people who drink beer and enjoy it in context of the other things that happen in their life.
Very, very cool. Very cool.
I got a hot tweet from that came in from our guest who's a little bit late right now.
He's not late. He said he was going to be.
Oh, he's not late.
Okay.
He's en route. Okay. But he said, "Oh, you're watching the Cubs game? Big deal. I'm here at the Bourbon County Stout pouring." Or something like that.
We're going to be talking about it. You literally can read the tweet, but that's fine.
I couldn't.
Instead of paraphrasing it.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible that Josh is really a tweet master 5000.
Yes, he is.
And to get his vibes on whatever's happening in the beer universe is...
Well, you know what? Maybe we should take a little bit of an early break. Is there anything that people want to talk about before we go to a break?
Yeah.
And then maybe Josh will be here by the time we get back, and we can talk about some of the juicy topics that I know he wanted to weigh in on.
I'll stop talking about Josh Knoll's secret topics that he wants to talk about.
Yeah.
But I do have a secret topic of my own.
That you want to talk about now?
Yeah, today I was just wandering around the West Loop. I don't know if you were there. Were you around there? Today?
I don't remember.
Oh, and then I was like sitting there, just hanging out, having a sandwich, enjoying myself. I was at a meeting, I think.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
And basically, the sky turned black.
I remember that.
A giant, blimp covered the entire West Loop area.
No, it was like a
spaceship or something.
Blimps are round. This thing was very angular.
Yeah, it was an angular blimp, like a giant garbage pile blimp.
Yeah.
And then a huge beam shot across the Publican, the original Publican building, and a video was projected.
Really nice place.
Greetings, valued craft consumer. The Beer Borg has acquired and assimilated the Illinois Craft Beer Awards. All your foamies belong to us.
Yep. I remember that idling truck very well.
The sound of the truck.
That's
was
what I
very
remember.
Loud.
Mm-hmm.
And this alien voice basically said that they were going to take possession of all the foamies that Illinois craft brewers won last year.
Well, that's a shame because we're trying to figure out. That's what our meeting was about, wasn't it? It was when we're going to do the Illinois Craft Beer Awards again, the annual.
Yeah, the
Illinois.
second annual, 39th annual.
Yeah, which won't
Illinois
be annual
Craft.
because we're going to skip a year. So that makes perfect sense.
It's a Borg year.
Yeah.
Is a year and a half.
Well, we do that on the Borg calendar, not the human calendar.
No.
All right, let's take a music break. We'll be back in 10 minutes or so.
Exciting news, right?
Oh, very, very exciting news, Ed. Thank you for crashing to tell me that. We'll be back with more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Thanks. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable on Lumpin' Radio 105.5 FM. I am your host, Chris Quinn, and man, the guest list has ballooned. We now have, my guests are Brian Roth, Matt Arata, who's shaking his head and looking at the game again, said he wouldn't, so we know that you're a filthy liar. Yep. I think that kind of says it all. The man who needs no introduction except for that. He always does that. Mr. Josh Noel is in the house. We have Edmar here now. Mike Palin, producer Serge, and Brian Roth is Skyping in. So we've got a big panel here. Serge is saying to mention that it's 105.5 FM Open Radio. So there you go. So now we're legal.
This isn't WKQD?
Nope.
Or WZRD?
We've got a lot to get to, Ed. So please.
No time for your
It's
shenanigans.
not WKRP?
Yeah, in Cincinnati. Yeah, I get it.
Brian, you stay in gold over there?
I am.
Nice.
Nice.
You've got a really great
Oh,
shirt
you're
on.
taking the
Great shirt tonight.
Run the jewels. Run the jewels. So anyway, Mr. Josh Noel, you just came from the Bourbon County tasting.
Fact. Am I on? I don't hear myself.
Oh, you have to turn up his.
We're a little
headphones.
low.
Am I in
here.
the cans?
Oh, there you go.
There I am.
So, what was your thought? What's your thoughts on the? Well, I want the exclusive on bourbon.
Well,
on
you
the
were
Bourbon
there,
County.
too.
I was. I have my own. I haven't said anything about it yet.
Oh.
But I
He
figured.
was graciously waiting for you.
Yeah. What do you think? Any thoughts?
Like every year, hits and lesser hits.
Mm-hmm.
I like the. I think we agreed on this. The reserve,
The reserve
quite
is
a bit. The
really good.
aged in the 11-year-old knob barrels.
Yep.
That beer is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
That's basically the standard BCS, but 2 years instead of a year.
No, it's in 11-year-old Knob Creek barrels rather than Heaven Hill barrels.
Okay.
And I asked some of the brewers there in attendance if it was the same base beer, because you would think it was a different base beer.
Right.
Much drier, much more dark baker's chocolate versus kind of like a sweeter, like molasses and vanilla thing going on. I really, really liked it. To me, it was kind of a return to form,
Nice
to
barrel
the form that
character,
I
yeah.
personally like. Not that, the beer as it is now is more popular than it's ever been, but kind of, how I prefer PCS to be. So I really was surprised by that one. That was my favorite. What do you think of that Banana Foster's, the prop this year?
The prop I actually liked.
I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yep, agreed. The one I didn't care for as much, to kill the suspense for my story in tomorrow's paper, or digital paper, it was the Northwoods, the blueberry almond. That was just sort of a long, sweet sugar bomb, and it's just I'm just sort of done with that.
I mean, I'm sorry to the people who made it. No offense, but I took some notes, and
by the way, we
I
did
just
not
said-
did not collaborate
No.
on our. We
No,
did not
no, not at
discuss
all.
this
We
before,
didn't.
but I'm glad we agree.
Yeah.
That means something.
I just wrote almond hand soap.
yeah. I mean,
That's what it reminded me of when you go to a restaurant and you have that like really intense almond hand soap.
Or can you buy it at Whole Foods? That almond hand
More of
soap?
a Bed Bath and Beyond situation.
Yeah,
Bed
more
Bath
of a
and
Bed
Beyond.
Bath
Oh, yeah.
and Beyond, maybe a Yankee Candle type deal. The coffee was also kind of a pseudo return to form because they went back to the Black Cat Espresso from Intelligentsia. And, I've said I like my coffee stouts to taste like the coffee in my coffee beers to taste like coffee, not these, really bright, acidic, fruity coffees that are, again, very popular. I like, old-fashioned, roasty coffee flavors, and it definitely had that this year. So
you like this one? Okay, I did too.
I like the
and some
coffee
people
this
were
year.
complaining there that it was not coffee forward enough.
Oh,
Whereas I thought it just sort of
disagree.
melded nicely. I
Yeah.
mean, is it like a knock you
integrated.
over? This is the best beer I've ever had? No. And I think that's the way a lot of people drink now. Is like I'm looking for the thing that's going to just give me the taste bud orgasm, and it's this is not that, but that's okay.
I guess that's
you
the
know?
Banana
It's just-
Foster
it's
was this one.
Because
I
coffee
guess.
was a standout last year. I thought overall throughout the board, coffee was the most robust and just had the wow factor
Yeah.
from last year. So
Yeah, no, and that's great. But this one just sort of like threads a nice needle, and it's a good beer. You know, it's just not it's not super showy. But
Yeah.
I thought
The
it
Banana
was nice.
Foster's one was like straight up caramelized, like bananas and fruit cake and bread pudding and
that's the caramel. Like the first thing that came to mind was like it's brown banana. It's like
Yeah.
that banana, and that's a nice flavor done well.
Yeah.
And it's really like pulled together pretty nicely.
Right, like the almond seemed artificial to me, but the banana didn't. It seemed like there was like some sort of like
not cloying.
Yeah, like banana bread in there or something like that. So,
so good for them. All in all, I think they did a nice job this year.
Yeah, I think they all in all did
I will
a good
not
job as well.
that Northwoods was really the only, for me, bummer. But it
was my least favorite Bourbon County variant I can remember tasting.
But all right, to get controversial, especially with Mike Palin in the room, I think people who are into the hazy IPA and the super low bitterness, very fruit, sweet forward IPAs might be into it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, this is all just me.
I'm leaving.
Personally.
Oh, bye, Mike. Oh no. Stay. Okay.
So, the other thing we wanted to talk about getting into was we usually don't talk about, beer event, tap takeovers or all the rage. But there was a significant tap takeover at Wrigley Field that you broke the story on. I think with a little help from the Lumpen Radio family, I believe, maybe.
Accurate.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about that. I think it's a local story, but I think it has some national implications, honestly, and that's that Wrigley Field. And we've been talking about, Ed, even in the break, you were talking about the TTB's investigation of pay-to-play. I think everyone would say that Wrigley Field is the epicenter of pay-to-play, and it radiates out from there into Wrigleyville and then throughout the rest of Chicago. So under the cover of night, almost, it seems Lagunitas...
Just seems that way.
Just seems
you don't
that
know.
right before the playoffs.
No, we know.
Lagunitas comes in and takes 30 handles from Goose Island at Wrigley Field. What is going on? That sort of stuff doesn't just happen, especially mid-season.
And they tried to portray it as just happening. We wanted to expand our offerings in advance of the playoffs.
We want to try something out.
Exactly. And that's just, who can blame them for trying to spin that line? Is that line accurate?
Of course they're going to spin
I think it's
line.
safe to say that is not accurate.
Yeah, I think it's safe to
my
say.
immediate thought is that, you know what? Who's the guys who own the Cubs? Those rich guys?
Yeah.
The rich guys.
Just call them the rich guys.
They met another rich guy, Tony. They're hanging out at Rich Guy High on the 50th, penthouse balcony over by
Come
the
on,
Loop.
Ed.
They're hanging out. They're like
everyone's
Tony,
rich guy.
Tony, what's up with your beer, baby? He's like, you know what? I'm a quadrillionaire now. You guys might want to put it on your taps. Try it out once in a while. And it was a simple conversation between rich guys.
No.
Or this is part of an incredible cover-up of the most massive pay-to-play scandal in Chicago. They had to get rid of the evidence. They had to get rid of the Goose Island on draft.
I don't know, man.
And change it with Lagunitas.
Could
it didn't look like there was any
probably
kind
a
of like
third option, honestly.
I like my hot take.
right.
better.
Or could the third option be a little column A and a little column B?
Yeah,
Look,
yeah,
the truth is that the Cubs, their concession manager, Levy Restaurants, has a pre-existing relationship with Lagunitas. So there's a reason that Lagunitas took over 27 taps and it wasn't Local Revolution or Half Acre or anyone else. Look, Lagunitas is basically big beer now. And Levy Restaurants is a huge company that controls concessions for 200 venues across the country. College basketball arenas and football stadiums and baseball ballparks and concert wherever Beyonce plays. I don't know.
Beyonce plays over at the UIC Center.
It's amazing how much louder you are than Mike Palin and how Serge has to go to the volume button the moment you... Anyway, go on.
His reputation precedes him.
Yes, it's true.
So Lagunitas... so this is Levy. Levy is powerful. The Cubs are powerful. Lagunitas is powerful. Goose Island is powerful because they're part of Anheuser-Busch, the biggest beer company in the world. Powerful. There's a lot of power going on here. There's no underdog story here. However, the Cubs were the joke about Wrigley Field. It was the biggest tied house in Chicago. It was basically an impenetrable fortress of Anheuser-Busch products.
And I've talked
more
to
or
guys
less.
in the
Not
local
wholly, but
Chicago scene saying, "Oh yeah, we can get in there. We can get in there. Sometimes we can get into Soldier Field and this and that. Wrigley Field, nope." Not going to happen.
And
Not
coincidentally,
gonna happen.
Anheuser-Busch has a, the number, it kicks around at different figures. There's no official number, but, $10 million a year marketing deal. Massive air quotes around marketing, because a marketing deal cannot equate legally to having your beer poured there exclusively. However, a $10 million marketing deal often results in your beer being poured near exclusively. That's the way it works.
You get one of those little like roll up kiosks up in the upper deck where they have beers of the world, and then it has like
Stella Artois.
exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Shocking. Leffe.
Or they might have like Heineken on there, just so it's like not whoa.
Whoa, what happened?
Something happened. Something major just fell.
Ed is not concerned.
Ed doesn't care.
Anyway,
All right, I'll figure it
Lagunitas
out.
took 27 Goose Island tap handles, sort of breaking down this informal wall that has existed at Wrigley Field.
Now, do you know how
Maybe I'll
many
go check
tap
on that. I don't
handles?
know.
Yeah, go check. Do you know how many handles Goose had?
Do you need a weapon with you as you're going to explore? No? I don't, but just sort of eyeballing it a lot. So 27 is really, truly a drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I was saying
wait,
too.
for-
It's
for-
not a lot.
Wait,
No,
for
it's-
Goose or for AB? For Goose, I doubt it's a drop in the bucket. At
27
Wrigley.
taps at Wrigley is not a big deal. It's probably a small percentage.
very small.
But-
However, it is. I think it's meaningful, and it does sort of open the door
Yeah.
for choice, which there's been zero choice basically at Wrigley Field.
I think there's a hidden story here that you guys don't know about. Prior to Lagunitas penetrating this wall of like AB InBev goose feathers, Mars Community Brewing was able to get on draft at the new Lucky Door Tavern,
Oh, a bunch of people have done
associated with the Wrigley Field thing. And I think it was this army of small guys like Mars and Low Res that just
to take
created
credit. Well done.
created this opening for smaller, large breweries like Lagunitas to come in and say, hey, if you're going to carry Mars beer, maybe you could carry a couple of ours. And I just want to maybe just say that that's one of the kind of hidden stories
Well
about
done.
this.
Are you serious,
Thank you.
or are you just patting yourself on the
Thank
back?
you.
I can't
You
even.
should always
Okay,
thank-
patting yourself. Yeah. All right, listener, ignore that.
Ed
That is
now
propaganda.
Cracking himself up.
That is fake news. Hashtag.
So now, what about the biggest kind of news that came out this week, which was the news, maybe in air quotes, was the Take Craft Back marketing campaign, and I'll call it marketing campaign because I think that's
totally what it was.
blatantly
Yeah.
what it is, right?
Yeah.
Or so
I decided to not invest.
you decided not to invest.
Yes.
Well, how about Brian's been quiet? Do you want to give an overview of what the Take Craft Back campaign is all about? Brian, are you
Sure,
okay with
yeah.
that?
So this was released this week by the Brewers Association. It's the trade organization that represents the how they describe it, the small and independent craft brewers of America. And Take Craft Back, it was something of a surprise, and I think that other people that I talked to who cover the industry, and Josh, you can certainly chime in on what you might have heard from others too, is that initially this was thought as something of a joke before realized how quite serious it was. The Brewers Association released a campaign complete with video and brand new website saying that they were going to raise $213 billion to buy AB InBev in order to take quote-unquote craft back. And the thing that I think really struck me about what happened and how it happened was the fact that this was very clearly aimed at both industry people and the people who think about the industry way too much, myself included. This was not aimed at the casual consumer, of which they're trying to bring into the craft fold to help raise the volume sold by their defined craft breweries. And so the initial response was kind of this shrug of people that at least I interacted with.
Can I stop you right there, Brian? And I
Absolutely.
wonder if that is. I wonder the degree to which the whole campaign was based on appealing to those more casual drinkers by simply trying to grab attention and coverage. And in that sense, I think they succeeded because they got stories in man, I'm sort of trying to remember here, but like the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which covers everything that has anything to do with AB, and like Men's Journal and Fortune, and like a lot of the more sort of mainstream publications, I feel like
That
bit
do anything
on this.
about craft.
Right. Just and that trying to get any coverage would lead to sort of engaging the mainstream consumer, like the person who might see Goose Island IPA and think, oh, that's a craft beer. I'm going to have some craft IPA right now. And engaging with that person to make them realize, hey, not so fast. Do you think it succeeded on that level? Because I feel like it. I mean, obviously we're a week into it, but I suspect that maybe it did.
Well, part of the issue that I might raise with that, just from a pure communication strategy standpoint, is that they didn't explicitly say, X, Y, and Z aren't craft, and we're taking it from them. They're saying AB InBev. So, one, if we're talking about casual consumers, then we have to, two, assume that casual consumers would know what is what. So they would need to know that, say, Goose Island or 10 Barrel or Elysian or anybody else is owned by AB InBev specifically.
Right. Good point.
And then we have to assume that those stories, however they existed digitally or in print, had some kind of impression that made people think twice about it. And I don't know if that kind of 24-hour news cycle turnover has that same kind of impact so much as it does that brief moment in time, where those who think about the industry and write about it and talk about it are spending their time with it.
But I wonder if it's rather than trying to beat people over the head with it and naming names, because they've done that
Just
before.
make
with
awareness
versus,
that it exists.
Exactly, planting the seeds. And then almost let it, like treating the consumer like they're actually smart, which is obviously a very open question in this country. And then letting them sort of like figure it out for themselves. And maybe, I feel like...
Or when it comes up again, to be like, oh yeah, I
Exactly
heard about that. Or when they see, John Oliver talking about, is what you're owning really...
Which he did, right?
Right,
he called Goose Island out by name.
Right, and I think that maybe it's just like one more brick in the wall, so to speak.
A long game.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps.
But it's also assuming that these things actually matter to the entirely average consumer.
And I mean, that's what your kind of your War of Words article was somewhat about. I kind of asking, do the bulk of craft beer drinkers, not only do they know, because I think the answer is probably they don't, but do they care? And if they knew, would they care? And I think, well, I mean, you tell me. I mean, what do you think about that, Brian? Do you think that people do care, the bulk of craft beer drinkers, and do you think it's just they don't care because they have no concept of what it means to be independent versus not independent, or what?
So one of the issues that I've had in terms of this pivot of the Brewers Association switching from their discussion and use of the word craft as their kind of signifying language, which all of a sudden took a very different turn a week ago now when they decided that they want to take that word back. They had spent the last few months talking about the word independent as the way that they want to now use as the kind of the base, the core of how they define their members. And I will not argue against the fact that on a consumer level, Americans have interest in the mom and pop independently owned businesses. However, every gesture that both the Brewers Association has made, as well as others, saying that independence matters in beer decisions is not true, because the surveys and polls they point to only go as far as saying that those who are surveyed, and in those surveys, a maximum of, between 25 to 40% indicate that they themselves are craft beer fans, say that they recognize the word independent as associated with beer. Nowhere in any of the surveys or polls that have been done so far does anybody say, I explicitly choose to buy beer based on the independence of that company. There are most certainly lots of people who make that decision. However, the ultimate, vast majority, we're talking well above 95% of the people in America, either do not know, we cannot prove that they want to know or care to know about what the business structure is behind the brewery of where they buy their beer. However, there is a whole host of stack of information, polls, academic studies, you could name it, that do show that people, and this is also stuff that has been done by the Brewers Association, that shows that specific aspects of flavor, experience, smell, taste, these are what people think about and want to experience when they're buying beer. Which is why I say when people think about craft, which has been kind of usurped by consumerism and capitalism in general as a way to try to describe quality, this is a generally understood term that defines something, quote unquote, as better. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant so much as that's just the way that the market has shifted and the way that people talk about it, the same way they use artisanal or handmade, these kinds of words too. And so the pivot from craft to independent, and now apparently we're going back to craft as well, paints this really weird picture where the Brewers Association both is trying to say that some words matter, some words don't. They don't care about craft as much as independent, but now they do care about craft because we need to take it back. And that still raises the question of how did they lose it, when did they lose it, and why did they care again after we had the last 3 months spent talking about independence specifically.
So I think that talking to the influencers and the geeks and stuff like that, I think that's what they're certainly doing with kind of going on multifaceted fronts here, where they're talking about independence matters but also want to take back craft. I think with craft, it's something where, it's been demonstrably shown you cannot defend the use of craft or litigate against it. The judges have thrown out out of court any time someone has said you can't call that a craft beer because it's made by a macro and this and that. And this was thanks to Jerry Nelson after one of the kind of after show hangouts we always had. To him, it was very clear as soon as this independence move the label came out was they want to pick something that they can own and then basically allow people to use for free, but they get to say what the parameters of it are, and they can then control it. And they had to pick something. They could not do craft. Craft has been shown to not be kind of defensible and definable, so they had to pick something that they could own, and then that's why they're doing it. And now they want to do both. And to me, that just makes... it's the easiest answer, which is why I think it's probably pretty accurate. So they want something that they can control and are going to try to push that. But hey, if people still think of craft, then we're also going to try to get that to mean something in people's minds as well.
It makes sense to me that they would not want to surrender the term craft, and why should they, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a losing effort, maybe it's not. I don't know. The one thing that I am skeptical about is the value of just pure taste / flavor / aroma. Basically what's in the glass versus the story behind it. As Anheuser-Busch has moved deeper into craft, they're deeply, deeply, deeply invested in story. The story behind each of the breweries that they're buying. And they're selling their craft beer based on the story. They're not solely selling it based on what's in the glass. So I'm not completely convinced that people don't care about the story or the quote-unquote independence, the quote-unquote craft, the history, and the facts.
If it didn't matter, they would make it plainly obvious that we have bought them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't. That is clear nowhere on any of the literally. I've gone through these one by one by one. Yeah. There is nothing that is clear about the fact that these beers are owned by Anheuser-Busch InBev. They're deeply invested in the quote-unquote independent stories of these breweries, and they're milking it.
And this is not a beer thing. This is just an everything. John Oliver talked about Burt's Bees. And if you said, okay, this Burt's Bees is made by a guy in a little log cabin in the middle of the woods, or it's a licensed brand or an owned brand by, Unilever, you, Joe, guy who just wants to buy some chapstick, which one means more to you? Which one has a more meaningful story? I'm telling you, people are going to say that they want the hillbilly out in a cabin. Yeah. And that's why they, one, purchase those brands and then try to pretend like it still is Bert doing it, or Ben and Jerry's.
Even like to take away sort of the pejorative language, like to maintain the story. Right. I mean, that they're buying the story.
But the story, as soon as they buy it, it is gone.
Well, actually, I have a very real example of this. If you'd like to hear it, I can't remember what's.
I would like to hear it.
The seltzer, the alcoholic seltzer brand that ABI bought.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyone? Brian? Brian knows. Brian knows everything. Spiked seltzer, or I don't know.
It's I can't think off the top of my head.
We're going to Google it and we'll find out.
All right.
Anyway, they sent out a press release about this seltzer company, and the press release included the fact that the seltzer was born in this guy. He created it in his garage.
Spiked seltzer.
Spiked. Did you just Google it?
I did.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Brian, by the way, is one of my very favorite craft beer writers right now. Just FYI.
Mine too.
I don't care what they say about you, Brian.
As long as I'm rocking that V-neck, it's fine.
That's right.
But are you wearing 2 shirts like Chris Quinn?
Always. And a V-neck.
We can't see
What's
Brian.
Anyway.
Only Chris and Serge can really see you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so ABI
like
bought Spiked Seltzer, and the press release that went out on Spiked Seltzer talked about the origin story of how this guy created the seltzer in his garage. Nowhere in the press release includes the fact that Anheuser-Busch owns the seltzer and now makes the seltzer. And, maybe I shouldn't be having this conversation publicly, but I said to the PR people in, one-on-one emails, I said, this is sort of intellectually dishonest, the fact that you're telling the origin story without telling the current story. And if you're pitching this product to someone to a features writer in Des Moines, nothing against you, Des Moines, I love you, you're a beautiful town, but maybe they don't, they're strapped and they don't have the time.
They're no Iowa City.
Iowa City's a good little town.
I know that. That's what I'm saying.
And actually, Des Moines is a
City.
good town too. I actually like Iowa. I mean that sincerely. Much better than the rest of Illinois. The reporter may not have the time to chase down all the facts and all the details, and there needs to be some clarity there, and there isn't. They're invested in the origin story more than they are the contemporary story, and I think that's very clear also in their.
But
their
why
10
are
brewery
they invested in?
Well, because it's a better story.
It's a better story, better marketing.
But
angle.
why is it better? What makes it better?
People apparently want to buy stuff that is
Exactly.
craft.
Exactly.
Air quotes on the craft.
I wanted to just let you guys know that I've had several encounters with people who did not know that Lagunitas was no longer a craft brewery.
Oh, nobody knows.
Yeah, and they
I
don't.
work with
But
100
craft-
guys.
But craft
every
is,
time
again,
they hear-
air quotes. man.
My day job is not in the industry. I work with 100 guys, and every once in a while I say, oh, yeah, Goose Island owned by AB. Oh, really? I kind of forgot or didn't ever know that. Or if I say, yeah, Heineken bought the rest of Lagunitas. Oh, really?
But the difference
Nobody knows.
is Lagunitas makes Lagunitas beer. Goose Island IPA is made in the same tanks as Bud Light.
Yeah. But that's
a
big
that
difference.
is a difference. That's relevant.
But it also, no one cares about the Brewers Association. Nobody cares about who owns the craft beer in general. Like you said, this 95% of America has no clue, doesn't care. However, what I do get for people is that when you do tell them that, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And their furrows, they're just kind of like scrunch up.
Their
They're
furrows,
like,
bro?
Their brows, their brows furrow. And it's like, New Age. You know what I mean? It's really, they actually are somewhat concerned. There is an aha moment where they actually do become concerned about the ownership of a specific brand.
And so that gets to the core point of, I don't think that one could argue that in terms of shifting consumer interest, people don't care about ideas of independence. I would say very easily, just speaking broadly about how people buy or think about goods, that's increasingly important to people. However, in terms of kind of proving the worth of what all this means within the beer industry, I only function in kind of this conversation in regards to what I know to be true, what has been shown through data analysis or collecting information, and that is that flavor matters and price matters, and that's where those things get people, and they know words like craft and artisan, and those matter, and so until there's something definitive to show otherwise, that's kind of where the vast majority of beer drinkers start.
And it's fair to say that maybe they want to be the type of person who does care about independence. You know, they want to be seen as that type of person, perhaps. So they'll say, yes, it matters to me. But when push comes to shove, they really like that they can get Burt's Bees right at the checkout of every Walgreens now, and it's $1 less. And, you know, I still, you know, am using.
They want to buy their craft beer at Walmart and Costco.
Well, they want convenience and price, just like Brian said.
Absolutely.
You know, when push comes to shove, that's what they want.
And there's what, you know, data shows, and then there's also, like, you know, what can data show in the future if you ask enough people certain questions. You know, I mean, it's just I mean,
organic food is in supermarkets now because people were going out to find it.
Right.
And now the supermarkets are bringing it in. So it works. I mean, Burt's Bees was bought for a reason. It's because people cared about that type of handmade product. Craft breweries are bought for a reason.
Hey,
but that's a really important thing.
Yeah, turn it down, Mike.
All these industries have changed, whether it's organic food in grocery stores or craft beer or whatever, in this kind of artisanal craft segment. When more people want it, it does change the kind of economics of a certain industry. And you could argue that, you know, what happens over time as prices go down. When you see, like, Aldi Foods started getting into organic food, and they made it a lot.
Kind of a basement.
It's like a basement, retail chain for groceries, right?
Yeah.
And their prices are half as much as Whole Foods or Trader Joe's.
They sell like knockoff stuff,
and they're selling a lot of it to people who probably would like the option of having food that's not, you know, polluted by all kinds of chemicals and hormonal things. But anyways,
do you know that Aldi and Trader Joe's are owned by the same company?
I didn't know that, and it makes me sad
and they're
elated. Well, if the Germans own it, then it's fine.
Then it must be efficient.
So to use this analogy a little further, the way that people are thinking about, like, food products like this, part of the reason why Amazon bought Whole Foods was because by lowering prices, and this has been shown in whatever the month or so since it happened, lowering prices, sales have gone up. Yep. And so something like you get the best of both worlds, where you're hitting price points that people feel comfortable, as well as you're providing products of which are interest to them.
Yeah.
And so there are these sweet spots where you have to hit the average consumer of which you're trying to get.
What's up, Mike?
I just want to say, as a small brewery, you know, we've been given the stickers and been given the digital file to put on our bottle, the independent logo. I do not put it on anything. I do not put it on the door. I do not put it on the bottle, just because.
Not even on the door. Okay.
I'm sick of this whole separation across anything. It's just everything is so divided these days. I'm over it. You know, we are a small brewery. You know who we are. I tell everybody who we are.
I think
people
it's very
know that.
obvious.
People know that.
Like
It's
pretty obvious.
For a brewery my size, people get it. So I don't want to get involved.
Well,
in
you're
it.
kind of in like fortunate territory, aren't you?
How so?
Well, the Chicago Tribune called you the hottest brewery in Chicago. I mean,
Nice
you're like
self-plug.
you sort of.
I didn't know that.
You sort of don't need this sticker because you were fortunate to come to deliver a product that people were very excited about at a good time.
We're incredibly fortunate, for sure.
There's no doubt about that. But, like, what about someone? I think that we've talked about this in the past. I think those independent stickers are really most valuable to independent regional breweries who could be in some of these spaces or fighting for tap handles in some of these spaces where the big guys are, and Mike, you're not going to be in those spaces.
So what I was getting to is that I saw this whole thing as just a shock and awe. Like, hey, there's no way that they're ever going to raise that much money, and if they do, they're not going to be able to take over the company. That takes a lot of other resources that they don't have. The association doesn't have. So the whole point of it was to kind of educate people. Hey, why are they doing this? What is the point? And then to kind of promote this new logo and make sure people understand what does that thing on the door mean, or why is this on the bottle? Just to help give that a little bit of legs. That's all I saw.
Kind of cool, right? Exactly, and that's probably a fair point that maybe hasn't been made more broadly. Is that this is an extension of the original upside down bottle thing?
Yeah.
It's part of the same,
which they stole from the 39th annual Illinois Craft Beer Awards, the foamy.
But do you know why it's upside down and what it means?
Because why the foamy?
Yeah, drain pour. It means your beer sucks, bro.
Yeah, it's like
not hazy
a
enough.
lot of us didn't know what it meant, and I guess
they turned the industry upside down.
Or it's supposed to look like a small fermenter. So who knows what it means?
I never heard that. I heard that they turned the industry upside down.
Yeah.
It's becoming like the Rolling Rock 33, where everyone has their own
Doesn't
reason
mean
for it or
anything
something like that. Yeah, it's definitely.
I thought it
they
was
took
about
from the
rinsing the
foamy.
bottle out with soapy water to make sure you recycle those bottles.
Yeah, no, it's a straight rip off of the foamy. Everyone knows that now.
Thank you,
Come
Chris.
on, yeah. I mean, that's a known thing. They wanted to get in on that hot foamy action, and they didn't.
You can have it,
But they're trying.
BA.
Well, I think they
Let
might.
them have it, Chris.
I think maybe they'll be getting a C and D
A free. Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
because I've had enough of this.
You know what? I'm outraged too.
Yeah.
We should send them a C and D for using
All right, let's
our
get back onto this.
patented,
Yeah.
trademarked foamy award.
Yeah,
You're
none
not-
of those are. None
You're
of
not
those are
hardcore
remotely
beer
true.
industry until
It's not
you've either
patented.
sent or received a C&D.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, we're gonna put the
Josh.
system on trial.
Thank you, Josh.
Son of
You've got Burrowed Furrows, and you've got Joel
God.
here, and
Call me Merle.
yeah, call
I
me
think I
Merle.
might.
Jeez, Ed, come on. If you're gonna crash the show, at least get the names
There
right.
are too many hazy IPA double dry
You
hop.
haven't even had
triple
any
jams.
Bourbon County Stout tonight. Come on.
I'm immune to stouts.
All right, that was a good snort.
Hey, Chris, you know
yeah.
what's a good PR stunt?
What?
Exactly what the BA did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Got us
Totally.
to talk
That's it.
about it for half an hour.
It was a great stunt. And
thanks,
I think
Matt.
that's sort of the bottom line. Is like,
Bummer.
I think what they did was very effective, and I thought it was pretty funny and self-effacing, and I thought it was.
Did you see
I
the
thought it was
numbers?
good.
They raised like 100 million already.
No, they
Wasn't
did
it?
not.
It was
I
2
saw it
million
pointed out.
yesterday.
Oh, sorry,
People
it was
who log
a
onto the
million. A
site
million I
and
saw
But
yesterday.
yesterday they
Yeah.
were up to
The
2
amount of
million.
money.
Hold on.
But still,
do a live
that's a
look.
ton of money.
Everyone be
I
quiet.
have no
Brian
service.
Roth is obviously going to give us the accurate answer.
data.
What? How much have they
what
raised?
is the change it because so they're not actually raising money.
Fake
This
money.
is all. They're not accepting any money. They don't ask for any information. It's just you go in and you pledge the amount, and so the amount that they say they've raised is literally just what people have entered into
there it is.
So can I type in
the system. Yeah.
200?
No.
Billion
it's-
dollars?
The
You can
most
do,
the most you can
$1,000
pledge is
Oh,
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's
I
cool.
pledged 1,000 just to sort of figure out what the hell was going on.
And you get a free koozie and a T-shirt.
I got a T-shirt.
Oh,
Nice.
Hasn't arrived yet.
so
They have to hit the milestone in order for
take
you to do
your
the show.
All
$1,000
right.
for
I
that
don't think we have
t-shirt, or-
time.
No, I think
to-
the T-shirt's very real. I think that's what they're invested in is like getting this hashtag and campaign out there.
I don't think we have enough time for our letter, so I'm sorry, Sam. We're going to have to push you off till next week. But we do have time for just a little, just it kind of talking about what we were before, about the meaning of craft, the meaning of independent. And Jeff Allworth, he pronounced the term craft beer dead and decomposing
Yawn.
recently. Yeah? Well, we've got
Well,
12
it's
minutes
kinda-
left. Come on.
That's pretty avant-garde of Jeff.
Well, I'm just if
Well, it
I-
was a Dunkin' Donuts collab
you know,
beer.
I'm just gonna start with like people want to keep saying like rock and roll is dead. There's nothing left to be done with guitars, and that's just BS. And there's like great rock and roll records are released every year. Rock and roll is not dead. Craft is not dead. It's just sort of like I think he's tired of talking about it, is what that means. And like,
We
and
say
he
the term
frankly,
means
and I
nothing.
respect Jeff like hugely. I mean, he does incredible work. But who cares what Dunkin' Donuts says? I mean, it's irrelevant. And there's never been a very clean, honest definition of craft.
Yeah.
The Brewers Association tried, but it's really an imperfect situation. And I think at the edges we sort of know what it means, and that hasn't changed. And yes, Dunkin' Donuts is not part of it. And the fact, if he's going to surrender craft because Dunkin' Donuts is trying to claim it, well, then I would say work harder, bro. Because who cares what Dunkin' Donuts thinks? That's
Right.
what I have to say.
You know, it's about time a visionary at Dunkin' Donuts
Thank you.
Well
Thank you
done.
very much.
There you go.
was able to impact.
Get down off that.
Yeah.
Step down easy off that soapbox. Okay.
Wait, oh, my ankle, my
and
ankle.
I know that Microphone Brewing has made a Dunkin' Donuts powdered donut.
No, that was
Imperial
that was
Stout.
the Stanley's Donuts. They're a
Oh,
small
Stanley's Donut.
independent.
I knew they did it. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
artisanal donut.
They're an
stout.
artisanal donut
Yeah.
chain with recently ballooned to 30 locations, but they're all good.
And let me just also say, Jeff then subsequently said on Twitter, actually, I declared the death of craft 6 years ago. So, like, this is just an ongoing, it's just an easy, silly conversation.
Yeah, Jeff has been
Clickbait.
exposed as
Jeff.
Jeff is great. Jeff is great.
Jeff's
but
a
it's just
hack.
the kid who
Like-
cried wolf or whatever.
in a sense, craft never exists, and craft will always continue to exist. And Dunkin' Donuts has nothing to say about it,
Yeah.
and Anheuser-Busch InBev has nothing to say about
I
it.
say
But
that
I would
joke-
love to hear what everyone else thinks about
Well,
it.
I want to say first that I say that jokingly because Jeff was literally put off by how much praise I was heaping on him when he came in for how much I liked him and respect him and everything. He's like, you're probably getting a little nervous here about what's going to spring. He's like, actually, I am. But, yeah, but I take it back. Much like craft beer, Jeff Allworth is dead to me after this discussion.
After making that bold avant-garde statement about the death of craft beer,
Yeah.
I still like him.
Yeah, I do too. But whatever. He's still dead to me. Unless he wants to come on again. What were you going to say, Mike? Or nothing?
nothing.
No one's going to say anything? Okay.
Well, you love music.
No one wants to say
is rock
anything
and roll
after this.
dead?
No.
I mean, of course not.
None of this stuff dies.
And people have said 15 years ago, rock and roll was dead. And then you know what happened? Pavement and Built to Spill and some of the greatest rock bands ever.
Yep.
Like literally. So
is that what's going to happen with
people
craft?
like that will try
Yes.
to kill it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Craft is fine. Rock and roll is fine. Everything is great.
Everything is awesome.
It's a conversation, I think, that just pops up every now and then. People have been saying, I like to poke fun at this with some of my friends, that people talk about, at the end of every year, start of every year, people talk about trends in the beer industry. Literally for a decade, people have been saying every year that sour beers are a trend and Pilsners are a trend. It's just something that comes up that people talk about, and craft is what every individual makes of it and what they believe it to be. So is it dead? No.
I
It'll
bet
be
you
just
Banana
fine.
Foster Stout will be a trend though next year.
Exactly.
Just watch.
Right.
Is it hazy?
Can't see
A
through it.
hazy banana Foster's ale would be
It's
triple
existed for a long
IPA,
time.
triple dry hopped.
Doesn't Wells make one? Wells makes one. Has for years. You know what? Come on. That's like the
Not
Jeff
tri-
Allworth
not
of
triple
styles.
dry hopped.
They said
not
that's-
triple dry hopped and hazy.
Oh, well, that hasn't been made yet. So Mars has to make that abomination. Anything else you want to add, Brian, or are you done? He's just been shaking his head silently the past 5
No, I
minutes.
think that the Jeff's particular take actually, I think, was just the other side of the coin from where I was looking at in regards to the word and meaning of craft and what it is to the average consumer. I think Jeff's discussion, at least the way I interpreted it, was within our community, the use and discussion and what it means has kind of lost its meaning. Whereas I think it very much still is very alive for a lot of people who think and drink beer. But no, it is what it is. It's fine. Craft is a word that gets tossed around and has meaning to people in many different ways, and that's perfectly okay. That's how language works.
There you go. A nice, rational explanation. Very much appreciated.
You know
by
how
the
I
way.
like to take all 5 sides of the coin?
I guess.
I would agree also with Jeff by saying, okay, Dunkin' Donuts made a craft beer collab. It is over. But you know what?
It was a coffee collab.
Oh, I guess that's
Coffee
okay.
beer collab.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at
I
least
didn't even think about that.
One,
I
you
thought
could
it
also
was a donut collab.
You could also argue that maybe craft beer made it to the mainstream. Thank you, Dunkin' Donuts, to bringing more craft beer fans into our fold.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were learning about craft beer because of Dunkin' Donuts.
Don't mess with Dunkin' Donuts.
Man, Dunkin' Donuts sucks.
Powdered Munchkin Stout.
I can say
Just
that. I'm
think
from
about
the
it, Mars.
East Coast.
Powdered Munchkin Stout is a great concept.
Damn
Thank
straight.
you.
You're welcome.
It's
Yeah.
already in the tank.
6-ounce cans.
Just drop one of them in there. Make
Well,
sure you
it's
get a
definitely gotta be
make sure you get a
Munchkin
photo of yourself with a little box of Munchkins, dumping it in. And
Did you
then
see
there you
Omnipoyo
go.
today?
Oh yeah, with their hamburger helmet.
Hamburger and fries.
You know where you can
Hamburger
get that?
buns and fries in the mash.
You know
It's
where you can get that beer right now?
at your store?
At the beer, on draft at the Beer Temple right now. Only place in the country.
Isn't
I
that a
believe.
call
Is
to
that
action?
OG hop?
No, I said I didn't say go get it.
Oh.
I just said
Where you could
where
find it.
where one could find it
Oh.
and drink it.
Well, by that extension, one could find my book on Amazon for pre-sale.
Right now? Oh.
When?
Yeah.
What's
Right
the
now?
What's the price?
It's available for pre-sale. It is $19.95.
I'm just going to go right into
So you can get it for
buy
less than a
7
crisp
copies.
$20 bill. You'll get 5 cents back.
Wow. That's great.
You know, I forgot to mention
Ed,
as
Ed,
an,
just
as an
let
aside,
Mike. Ed keeps throwing
Yeah.
the microphone in
back
front
and
of
forth.
Mike,
and then I grab
and
back.
then
just keep it in front of my face,
and then
Mike.
grabbing it back 5 different times. Just leave it, and Mike will take it from you.
I wanted to mention as an aside,
Ridiculous.
15
Ed.
minutes ago, that when Hamazon bought Whole Foods and they started reducing prices on like ham sandwiches and soap, people purchased more craft beer.
Is that true?
And,
Yeah.
and he
Rising
according
tide
to-
lifts all boats.
that-
According to the specialty
then he-
manager,
then he
that
pushes
people
the mic back slowly. 'cause he
people
was making a point.
people were
by the
able to
drone.
they saved money
get a
on buying
video
soap or
of
whatever, and they spent more on alcohol, which I found very fascinating.
Is that something you read or something you're
That's
hot
what
taking?
that's what the specialty manager told me. The guy in charge of all the craft beer and cheese.
Can I just drop a little parting thought here? Is when weed is legal, it's going to blow all of this up.
Yeah.
It's going to increase craft beer sales massively.
Is it?
Yeah, look what it's done for Denver. Look what it's done for Denver.
Are sales up in Denver?
Yeah, there's breweries everywhere now too.
Well, but there were before.
No, there's a lot more now.
Because of weed?
but there's-
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
mean,
It's
come
if it's a
on.
direct correlation, but hey,
Well, Denver's just
Tony
a
McGee
progressive
said
town,
it could
right?
be potentially
It's definitely
to
a
the
correlation.
detriment. So I believe everything he says.
What does Brian think? Brian knows what's
There's-
up.
He does. He's
got
done.
stats.
There's no definitive evidence to suggest
Oh,
that
Brian and his
legal marijuana
definitive
He hasn't-
evidence.
He hasn't seen an infograph.
has
yet.
impacted.
There's no infographic been made about it. Therefore, there is nothing to be made of it.
Is that your
I'm just
bedroom,
excited we
Brian?
have a full view of Brian now in the studio for the
his
first
bedroom,
time.
That's where you sleep?
I'm imagining myself in your bed right now.
Black and white
Well,
motif.
good night, everybody.
Yeah. Whoops. Let's get that out of there. Yeah. So there you go. I just wanted I wanted Brian to see the shenanigans of you ripping the mic, ripping the mic and then throwing it back, and then 10 seconds later grabbing it again.
That's my move.
Yeah.
It's my physical hot take.
yeah.
he told me before we started the second
that was a
session.
great
He's like,
pass.
"I'm not going to talk at all. I'm here. I'm listening."
I think I said I was going to be ambient.
That's amazing. Throws it back. There you go.
You
All
believed
right.
him.
I think it's about that time. I like that it derailed at just the right amount of derailment, I would say, which is what I go for. Sometimes that happens 4 minutes in, not as good,
throughout the show.
or throughout the show.
Yeah.
But what's up? Show is going off the rail, says Omar. Yeah, in the chat room. It is Omar, but Come on.
It's this DDH ABC 123 stuff.
is it a stout? Because
DDH,
they have no effect on you.
ABC's BBD. I don't know what's going on.
Do we have
Boys
time
to
to
men.
ask?
Can't even read.
Can we ask Brian real
Cannot
quick?
read.
How
Yeah,
long
let's
until
do
the double dry hopped thing do you think we've moved on from it?
What do you mean?
We're already on quad hops, Josh.
Yeah, man.
I was
It's
gonna say.
not happening.
Phew!
If it's not double dry,
Extra
people are
dry
buying
hops.
it.
We're releasing a triple dry hop in about a month.
What about
I
continually
don't even know if that's a
hop?
joke. Is that a
real
joke?
deal.
Oh, that's not a joke.
I already
okay,
did it.
of course.
But it is actually to make fun of you, Mike.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't better. It actually was worse. So don't do it.
Lower yield.
A lot lower yield.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final words? I am here with my guests, Brian Roth, Matt Arata, Josh Noel, Ed Marr, Mike Palin, producer Serge. I'm Chris Quinn. Want to go around the horn and have some final words? Okay, yeah. Well, we'll start with.
I wanna start off.
in the middle.
Of course you do.
I'm going to start off. I'm going to grab the mic.
Around the horn, starting right in the middle.
I just want to say that I'm very sorry, Cubs, for what happened. And I hope that next year you're playing the White Sox in the World Series.
Won't happen.
Okay. Anything else?
Because of the White Sox end of it. I want to say as a Cubs fan that I feel very fortunate to have been in 3 straight National League Championship Series, and we've got one World Series win under our belt, and you know what? I feel great about everything as a Cubs fan. But I also want to say with regard to beer is I just feel so fortunate to be interested in and writing about and invested in this industry that just seems to get more interesting by the week. And it's every time Anheuser-Busch buys a brewery, every time the Brewers Association pulls something, every time Mike Palin releases a double or triple or quadruple dry hopped IPA. I mean, there's just this. You wouldn't think this podcast needs to exist, but every week there is something fascinating to talk about. And the beer industry is just clicking on all cylinders and has for a while. And I just feel very thankful and fortunate to be part of it and writing about it and talking about it. And it's a really special time in this industry.
Agreed. Mr. Matter.
No, actually, I mean it. Ed's making fun of me right now, but it's like it's crazy.
I'll echo Josh. Saying. Yeah, I mean it's great that we can argue and discuss about a tasty beverage for 2 hours. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it inspired me to go get on Walden Pond. So, I mean, screw all you guys. I'm an intellectual. That's my final word. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I just want to say, there's a lot of hate in the world right now and negative comments on everything we do. And you see, and I was
the brunt. Pro or con that?
I was the brunt of a lot of hurtful stuff. And I just say, you know what, let's just strip it back and go back to the old rule of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Or if you don't have anything productive, or if you do have something that you want to be productive, take it direct to the person and have an honest adult conversation. Because it was hurtful. It was demoralizing. It really set us back, and it kept me up at night every night and worrying about what's going on. And we responded. We sat down. We talked to the right people. We figured things out, and let's just stop the hate and the negativity. Let's just be happy, and enjoy beer, enjoy life, and enjoy one another. And I think out of that, good things will happen. So that's my Maury Povich?
No, that's dating yourself.
I'm an old kid.
I would sort of argue that the fact that
Jerry
people
Springer
get so
final
angry
word.
and fired up, though, is like almost a good sign in a way. I mean, I'm sure it was horrible to be on the other side of that, and I'm not, advocating for that. But just the fact that people care that much, there's a lot of meaning in that. We've got to go.
Give
Okay,
Mr.
bye.
Brian Roth his final word. Lovely maroon
congrats
V-neck.
to Chris and the Beer Temple team. Congrats to Josh, 2 top winners in the North American Guild of Beer Writers Awards recently. Great to know you guys and work with you guys and talk to you guys. You deserve all the accolades you receive.
Well, thanks for running the whole the guild, Brian. Brian's the president of the guild now and doing a fantastic job so far.
You look good tonight, man.
Yeah,
And
he
that.
is. He does. He does look good. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. I want to thank all my guests. I want to thank all the listeners. We will be back next week with more, you're right there, of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. So long.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.